on January 20th. Who is excited? Well, what a blessing it is to be here with you all. Let's get the party started this morning. There is no party like a Turning Point party, unless, of course, you are LeBron James. Look, what we just saw in that video, and really what we saw on November 5th, was democracy in action. The American people spoke, and the American people want Donald Trump. It was the red wave that I personally had expected in 2022, but we did not get. What we saw was a blowout on all accounts. Of course, maintaining control of the House, gaining control in the Senate, winning the Electoral College, remarkably winning the popular vote. All of this just totally debunks the narrative that they've pushed for at least a decade or so, the whole mean orange man narrative. Well, I certainly believe people turned out to the polls in droves to support and to embrace Donald Trump. More so, I believe people turned out to the polls to reject absurdity. And that is what the Democratic Party has become, entirely and thoroughly absurd. They have become a cult that does not believe in freedom. They don't believe in free speech. They don't believe in school choice. They don't believe in parental rights or the safeguarding of children. They certainly don't believe in free thought. They do not believe in freedom unless it's the freedom to kill a developing baby in the womb or to chemically or surgically castrate children. And they've become totally out of touch with reality. Actually, not even just out of touch with reality, they have become anti-reality. And they have lost the ability to communicate with common sense, everyday Americans. Whether it's referring to Latino individuals as Latinx, putting tampons in boys' bathrooms, advocating for the unregulated child abuse that they have deceptively repackaged as gender-affirming care, which I believe is the biggest medical scandal this world has ever seen. And of course, putting men in women's sports. The Wall Street Journal actually said that the whole national debate of allowing men into women's sports was the sleeper issue of the election. We saw how it affected the outcome of the presidential election, but also it played a key part in these important Senate races, like in Pennsylvania, Bob Casey and David McCormick, or in Ohio, Bernie Moreno and Sherrod Brown. I was thrilled, I think back to this summer, when President Trump's platform was released, and issue number 17 in big bold letters said, "No men and women's sports." I would crack up watching him on the campaign trail. You know, when he was directly asked, people would ask him, "How are you going to fix this issue?" And he would almost kind of grimace or laugh because, again, it's kind of like a South Park episode, the visual of it, or like a Babylon Bee headline or an SNL skit. And he would just say, "I'm going to ban it," emphatically. And that's the type of leadership and moral clarity that we need. He has vowed on day one in office, he will reinforce and uphold Title IX's original intent, which now it's personal for President Trump. His beautiful granddaughter, Kai, has accepted a scholarship to the University of Miami. I could tell thousands of stories. I won't bore you with the details of the specifics of how I found myself here. But please know I could tell you thousands and thousands of stories from girls just like me, girls who have lost out on opportunities, girls who have been exploited in locker rooms, girls who have been injured in their sports. But I want to tell you why I feel hopeful and why you should feel hopeful as well. 25 states up until this point have passed some sort of legislation ultimately protecting sports on the basis of sex. 14 million women across 8 different states are protected by a bill that codifies and defines the word woman in state statute to prevent these unelected bureaucrats from going through the back door and reinterpreting this word to mean what they want it to mean. I cannot even believe that we have reached a point in time where we have to do that. Pass legislation to define entry-level basic words like woman. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised considering we have a sitting Supreme Court justice who also happens to double as a theatrical Broadway performer, by the way, who cannot define the word woman because she claims she isn't a biologist. Guess what? I'm not a veterinarian, but I know what a dog is. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And it's no surprise that this is the same Supreme Court justice who just earlier this month, when there was oral arguments heard before the Supreme Court surrounding, again, the unregulated child abuse that minors are facing at the hands of medical professionals, she likened banning these experimental chemical and surgical castration treatments to banning interracial marriage. And it's no surprise that this is the same Supreme Court justice who recently, in an interview, she said she felt like our First Amendment rights were hamstringing the government. Precisely. That is precisely what our First Amendment rights are supposed to do. And if our government can't understand or abide by that, that's precisely why we have the Second Amendment. You know what else leaves me feeling hopeful? It's the onslaught of women that we have seen, women and girls across the country, and teams who have ultimately decided to forfeit a match where they know they have to compete against a man. A man is on the other side of the net or the other side of the court, like we've seen in the Mountain West Conference in the sport of women's volleyball. These girls have told me, yes, you know, it might appear as if we're stepping down. We know we're taking a loss on our record, but we're not actually stepping down. We're standing up. We're standing up for ourselves and the many generations of women to come. And so I applaud them for deciding not to participate in the farce. We have dubbed this as Project Boycott, with emphasis, of course, on the word boy. I don't know if any of you saw there was a Senate hearing this week where the president of the NCAA, President Charlie Baker, testified. Senator Kennedy looked at him and he told him, "Go to Amazon, buy a spine, and learn how to take a stand," which he really has such a way with words. I'm excited to continue on the Gaines versus NCAA lawsuit that has been filed, and imagine this being a very victorious endeavor. I'll put a bow on it by sharing with you all some of the things that I've learned over the past few years that have really helped me stand tall and be secure in this fight. First and foremost, it's to trust God's calling for you. This is never, please hear me when I say this is never where I saw myself. This is never what I wanted to do. This is never what I prepared for, or so I thought. I was in dental school after college. But I was really, really wrong in assuming that that's how God works, that he calls those who are already prepared, because that's not what he does at all. He prepares those who he calls. And if he brings you to something, he will certainly bring you through it. Just like he did with Esther, who before she was brought before the king, which reminds me of that verse, Esther 4:14. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with it, or at least the last part of it, right? For such a time as this. But the front half of that verse is just as timely given our political and cultural climate. Mordecai, he's speaking to Esther and he tells her, "For if you remain silent, you and your father's family will perish." Understand that applies to every single person in this room right now. We were not saved to be silent. So be bold, say the controversial thing, call out injustice when you see it, and never, ever apologize for speaking the truth. I won't stand up here and lie to you and tell you that you won't get pushback, because it's almost certain that you will. But what I will tell you to do is take it on the chin. That's probably the number one question I get asked, especially from young people. They say to me, how are you able to deal with the pushback and with the negativity? And my response is easily. It's easy to say the things that I'm saying. I haven't said anything that is overly profound or anything that makes me wise. I literally have a platform for saying there are two sexes, and you can't change your sex. And each sex is deserving of equal opportunity, of privacy, and of safety. That's it. And with that, it will inevitably, come with baseless name-calling and petty personal attacks. But that should only reaffirm your position and encourage you to speak louder. So let them call you names. It speaks more to their own insecurities than it does about you. Although I firmly believe that cancel culture is fading. But don't take it from me. Look at the silly little Trump dance that has become this viral sensation for people from all walks of life. I think objectively this dance, it's silly and it's fun, but in reality, this dance, it means so much more. It means everything. It's a display of the return of free speech and free expression. It's a sign of patriotism, and it's proof that cancel culture doesn't hold the grip that it once did. So you don't have to be a closeted conservative anymore. You are the majority. The American people have won for now, but the biggest mistake that you could possibly make is to become complacent. Success breeds complacency, and complacency breeds failure. Complacency is the enemy for growth and for progress, and so you must keep your foot on the gas, because if the people in this room don't, then who in the world will? It's easy to naively believe that our government and the media and the many different tentacles of the establishment have our best interests at heart, because after all, that's their job. That's the job they were elected to do, is to serve us as public officials. But unfortunately, that is not the reality. Power is and has proven itself to be an addictive drug. Look at Nancy Pelosi, for example. This is a woman in her mid-80s who literally just broke her hip. But nonetheless, and you mark my words, she will serve in office so long as she's continually elected, up until the day that she dies, because she's addicted to power and because she's addicted to money. But it's not just the Democrats either. Look at Mitch McConnell, for example. Both are perfect examples of why we desperately need term limits, but I digress. I say that to say it's up to us, we the people, to hold our leaders accountable and make sure they do what they say they're going to do, because seldom do people do the right and the moral thing unprovoked. And my last thing for you is to do not forget. Don't forget the people who touted follow the science, all while telling you that men can become pregnant and breastfeed. Do not forget the people who cheered on and, quite frankly, have swooned over a deranged murderer, yet wanted to imprison for life a Marine and a hero named Daniel Penny. Do not forget the people who posted a black square to their Instagram social screaming Black Lives Matter, yet have stayed totally silent to the largest genocide this world has ever seen, which is disproportionately killing black babies, called abortion. Do not forget those who say that Trump is equivalent to Hitler and will weaponize the DOJ against his political opponents, when that is exactly what they have done, again, for nearly a decade now. And know that Trump is not their final goal. It's people like you and people like me. Do not forget the people who drove around town, double-masked, alone in their car, the people who haven't said a single word about the 500,000 plus missing children in this country at the hands of border czar Harris. Do not forget the people whose strategy it's their go-to strategy to call Trump a liar, yet performed one of the most consequential cover-ups of all time by lying to you about President Biden's condition and mental state. Do not forget. And to be clear, I'm not saying don't forgive, because as a Christian, I believe that we should aim to have the grace and the forgiveness and the mercy that mimics that of our Lord and our Savior, but there's value in using history as a foundational basis for your judgment, both from a worldly and biblical sense. And so I just want to give a sincere thank you to the people in this room who have supported me, number one, personally. I can't tell you what that has meant for me, for my fight over the past 2 years. And I want to give a thank you, of course, to Charlie Kirk and to Turning Point for their efforts in mobilizing Americans, specifically the youth, a demographic that's often forgot about or left out of these conversations. No one has been able to engage, transform, and revolutionize my generation like Turning Point has. They've been doing the necessary on-the-ground work in the state of Arizona and, of course, across the rest of the nation. I wholeheartedly believe, actually, I don't even just believe this, I'm certain that the election would have looked a lot different without Turning Point, without the people here who have supported Turning Point every step of the way and who have believed from day one that a greater, safer, more affordable, and stronger America was not only possible but imperative. And accountability starts on January 20th. Thank you, guys.